I'm L.A. Little, and this is your daily TA wrap, where we take a look at these markets and we do it from a different perspective each time, asking ourselves, what's the neoclassical tell today? What's the trend? Where's the supply and demand on the charts? I do this show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of the beautiful Rocky Mountains. Folks, it was a rocky day in the markets. Nothing to fear though. ECB's got your back. It's there. Let's look at the numbers. So we get some pullback actually on the listed issues. 100 points on the Dow. Primarily that was off of Boeing on a downgrade. Valuation downgrade. I see a question up here as I come on about it. We'll look at it. Energy was the standout today. Other than that, there wasn't that much. Most things were down, but the S&P is only down 1/3% at the end of the bell. They were down 7 points, 1943.70. Came off the lows. They were down, what was that, 40? Yeah, they were down at 40, 1940. So a little of a bounce back, but still, you know, finally we get a retrace, right? I mean, we've been saying anytime now, you're going to get some sort of retrace, but I expect they're going to buy it. And sure enough, when they pushed it down, the buyers did come in, pushed it back up. They were actually back up almost, I think it was like 1947, and then it sold off right at the close. Composite only down 6, slightly percentage-wise, 43.32. The Gdxj only 3 points down, not even a 1/10%, 37.98 was the close. The Russell down 0.5%, down 6 points, 11,066. We had oil pretty much even. Gold, you had a little bit of a bump today, up $4. Outside of that, nothing was happening. Okay, so that's kind of the numbers. What do the charts look like? If we go and take a look at the charts, what you're going to find is these charts are telling you they're going to try to rise again tomorrow. So let's take it one step at a time here. Look at our volumes. This is the ECB day here. Top of that bar is there. What does it do? It comes into the ECB bar, test into it, doesn't have the volume. Thing's going to flip around, go back up and try to test the top. And that's just the way this one's set up. So that's the S&P 500s. Dow Jones. If you look at the Dow actually came back harder into the ECB bar. It was up a little bit higher, came back into the ECB bar. That top is or was 16,845. You get down into it, you close slightly into it, so the Dow actually is into the bar and stayed into the bar. So now the Dow has been the weakest, so it's not unexpected that the Dow would be the one that pushed back into it. And by weakest, I mean over the last, probably about 4 or 5 days. Well, actually more than that, about a week now. Nasdaq, the composite, the broad composite. You can't even tell anything happened today. It's just sitting there, right? So slightly down, sitting at the highs. Gdxj, and that's still testing that high. I'll come back to it. Gdxj doing the same thing. Let me come back to the Nasdaq composite. Remember, this is testing the highs from that last breakdown bar, right? And what are you doing? You're sitting there consolidating right up underneath it, right? That thing is going to try to break over it. That's what it's trying to set up to do. There is an ABCD structure in place here that gets us up another 60, 70 points. That's coming off these lows, and now it's setting up another nested ABCD structure inside of it, right? So you've got this ABCD structure that takes you up into that area, a little bit higher actually, a little bit farther up. And now you've got another one that's starting to set up inside of it. Today's actually gives you that will take it up to that same area. And so you're getting the nested ABCD structures to go try to hit that target out there. And yeah, I could pull back a little bit more, but right now this thing's setting up pretty nice. If you look at the Russell, now the Russell had been the weakest across the board for quite a while. had finally started to make a push. The Russell trades up into this resistance zone, up into this, tries to get into the top of these bars, finished off its ABCD structure on the upside. So we had, actually it was from here, you had an ABCD structure there that it finished off. Now you're getting another little pullback off of that, depending on how far it gets. You know, some pretty good support here. You got a swing point high there. Going to try to set up another structure to take it back to the top. That's the Russell. So index-wise, two tells. One, Gdxj, Nasdaq, they won't even come off the highs. Number two, S&P test into the ECB bar, rejects going any lower, says no sellers, flips around, looks like it wants to try to go higher off of that, and test back into those highs and see if it can get over it. If you look at the sectors, right, and I won't go through all of these because I see a lot of questions, but the strongest one today was the XLE. This guy was pushing higher all day long, just wasn't even thinking about giving it up, right, so to speak. And that was off this Exxon Mobil's rumor. I didn't ever see a confirmation, but a rumor Exxon Mobil is going to go after Anadarko Petroleum. This one bust higher, breaks over the swing point highs, going to build in a premium now as a result of the takeover news. And so that buoyed, of course, all of the oil sector. And so the oil drillers, suppliers, those guys all started pushing higher today. And you can see it here. This is the drillers. They were down, started pushing back up, and the XLE we just looked at was pushing up all day. And those were the strongest ones. Even though this one didn't quite get back up there, that's where all the money seemed to be flowing today. Let me see where else, anything else interesting. Oh, the SOX, you got to look at the SOX. The SOX actually closed at new highs again. And that thing that's an amazing run. It's got an ABCD structure in place, and honestly, as we were going up, I thought there's no way it can get there, but now I'm beginning to wonder if it will. So you got a little bitty pullback here, ABCD structure that takes you quite a bit up, and this thing is just trying to go straight after it. And sometimes the chips, when they get rolling, that's what they do. And you see it here, you see it in Taiwan's market because there's so much chip companies in that market. Just a beeline higher. Strong move. Elsewhere, we just had small minor retraces. I don't see anything else as I glance through my notes here. And as I've said before, if you are a member, you can get my notes every night. I pop them in here, just come into the major sectors. It will show up here as a shared watch list, and it will show up in here. You can grab it, and you can follow along with me in terms of all my thoughts. I jot them in each night to do this show, and actually to remind me tomorrow of my thoughts for tonight. Let's go to the OX markets, because that's where you had a little bit of action in two places primarily. The EM is one, and these guys are just hanging at the highs and they won't give it up. So they're hanging there at the highs, the emerging markets. Gold had a little bit of a push up. I saw a question on it about the gold miners. We'll talk about it. So gold is trying to get back into this low. And it's a struggle to get back up there, but it's trying to do it. And we talked last night about silver. So you had a little slight move higher today in gold. Silver, we were talking about silver back over this retest regen zone. And let's draw that in right quick. So we had this retest regen zone. Silver gets over it yesterday, and I said, it'd be important if it held it today. It did hold today. It wasn't the best of candles, but it did hold. So unless I see that thing drop tomorrow, it looks to me like this is telling us that market wants to work higher, and gold itself is going to try to work higher as well. So right now, that looks to be the way it's heading. Problem is, of course, when gold gets up there to do the retest, I think it's going to probably struggle. And so, you know, this is going to take some more work, but it looks to me like it's going to hold these intermediate term time frame trends sideways again and not give it up and start breaking lower, which was, you know, you have to be concerned about that as it tries to put in a longer term bottom. And what I'm talking about is if I go here to the weekly, you can see these lows on an intermediate term time frame. Breaks this one, was trying to get down to test that one. There's no volume down here, you know, so the sellers just aren't there. It looks to me like you're actually putting in some sort of a, you know, a elongated type, try to trade higher type move, right? Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but so far it just doesn't have the strength to break that thing down. So that's silver, and gold looks the same way. The other one is TLT, and you got the euro hanging at the lows. You got the bonds, not the bonds. You got the dollar hanging at the highs, and bonds, they can't quite decide what to do. You've had 3 dojis in a row, and had this been slightly different, it would have been a tri-star doji at the bottom. Usually you see those at the tops, but that a lot of times is a reversal signal, so I'm going to be curious to see how this trades tomorrow. Remember, this is trading into a huge zone here in terms of buyers probably wanting to step in. It came down there with some decent volume. Actually, that was these 2 bars. It came down with some decent volume, then the volume started to dissipate as it went sideways into this area. It's to me, it's a toss-up, but it does look like it's got a chance to try to flip around and head higher. But, you know, that one, the direction just isn't clear. I want to quickly look at the overseas markets, and then I'll move to your questions. If you want to send me text, 303-912-9110. I'll try to answer your questions, or you can email it to support@tatoday.com. So let's go over to the world markets. The main weakness overseas last night really was in Europe. We actually had the World Bank came. I wasn't the World Bank. Who was it? IEC, I think it's called. It came out with estimates, downgraded the estimates yesterday evening on world GDP, but I don't know that that was that unexpected. We saw some selling in Europe. Remember, Europe has pushed higher, quite a bit higher, on the Draghi news, and so that push up had pretty much finished off some ABCD structures to the upside. So here's France, for example, had finished off an ABCD structure, so now you're getting a retrace. Where's the retrace potentially coming to? Well, it could come back into the support area, but I think it's going to be hard to get down there, and certainly going to be hard to break it. You did see some volume pickup today as it came off. Tomorrow will be interesting because it will give us a better sense of whether this is going to be a continuation of selling or a one-day respite and you're back up the other way. The DAX, to me, is the better one because the CAX, in my opinion, is the weaker one. DAX comes back into the lower part of this kind of consolidation range here. And so I would be watching this little range to see what it does. You got some nice volume in this area. Volume did pick up today, but it's got to get under this bar to make a difference. What is that bar? Well, that's your ECB bar. So we'll see if it can break under the ECB bar. If it did that, I'd probably be a little bit more concerned. But right now, this just looks like some profit-taking congestion. This is about 3 weeks of congestion. I think there's still some doubts about what's going to happen with respect to what the ECB has done. But at the same time, it's pretty hard to sell that news. Elsewhere, you got China hanging at highs. You saw some more easing talk in China. The Nikkei actually pulled back a little bit, but it looks to me like it's going to try to flip around. And Taipei just keeps going higher. And that pretty much sums up the world market. So let's go see what kind of questions we had, and let me try to answer those. So I had one texted to me. Let me take that one first. So hang on a second. Google and LVLT level 3. So let's look at those first. So the first question is on Google, and this is the Goog symbol. Is it forming a small ABCD structure to the upside? Well, it may be. You know, we really won't know until this thing goes. Now, a lot of times what happens, and you saw me just do it elsewhere, is you already have an ABCD structure in place, right, to try to take this back up into these bars, up into this area, and certainly to take it back over to swing point high. If you do set up another little pullback inside, that gives you a nested one that takes you up there. So, you know, if you know, it's always better to have a couple of these than to have one. And so, yeah, if it breaks over this high and you now have a little ABCD structure inside of it, that makes the move potentially more powerful. Not so much powerful, that's probably not the right word, more likely to finish off those targets. So yeah, it seems like it's doing that, and it still looks fine to me. You're drifting back with no volume. That's exactly what you'd like to see. The other one was level 3. We actually looked at level 3 today. We were talking about it. You know, if we look at what's happening here, and in this particular case on the daily, the charts are fairly clear. You've got a support zone right here. You came into the support zone. There's absolutely no volume. And that's coming back into this kind of volume. So to me, this was a buy today. You go under, back over, right? And it's not a 2-bar reversal, but it's an under over at a support zone, right, on a big strong move up consolidation. So from my perspective, this looks like a really nice stock, and that was what we were commenting on in the trading room today. If you draw in the quadrants here, you basically have 3, and so many times it's kind of always amazing to me, but so many times these things will be almost equidistant. If you're on a log chart, which we are, is it 2, 3? Yeah, so it's pretty much set up that way. So anyway, that level 3, I like it. It looks good. It looks good on all time frames. If you pull it back, look at the weekly, it looks the same. So nice big spikes up, volume on each of the spikes. Consolidation, eventual takeoff again. And it's done that multiple times here. 1, 2, 3. This is the 4th attempt. All right, let's take some of the questions over in the room here. So please look at BA. So Boeing... I'm pretty sure it was Boeing that got the pressure today off of a valuation downgrade. So let me see. The question is, looks like the test of swing point low, no, of swing point high, but the volume looks large. So I'm on a weekly right now. This is day 3, so we can kind of estimate the volume pretty well. So it's 11, so you're doing about 4 days. So that's going to make it about 18 or so. And you're coming into 45, so on a weekly, you certainly don't have the volume. Let's flip to the daily. And if we look at it at a daily, yeah, you could get a little bit more pullback here. So you did 5.5. Yeah, this still looks good on the pullback. So you're going to get 2 things going here. One is, so let's look at this closely. So this high is 133.97. It traded down to 134.04. So it did not. What is this one? 134.17. Yeah. All right. So you've got a swing point high here, right? That's a that's the retest regen. You go over more than 6 bars. Usually, and let me double check this price point one more time. 133.97. Yeah. So my drawing's just a little bit off. It really didn't get inside that. That's why I was checking it one more time. So if I pull this back down to where it should be, there's actually just slightly a little room in there. Okay, so now the point I was trying to make, as it comes into this area, right, it has more volume. And that's more volume than the breakout, and it's more volume than the swing point high. Usually, after 6 bars, about 80% of the time, this will hold right at the top, or right near the top, just slightly into it. But when you come down this hard, you can't assume that's going to happen. As a matter of fact, you have to assume it's going to come deeper. And so from that perspective, I wouldn't try to buy this until it shows me that there's no more sellers. And that showing me may not happen until you get back into this support zone. And why there? Well, because look at the anchor bar on that one. So that would probably be the place that you want to try to buy this and, you know, have a chance to buy this, right? That would look like that to me. So that's 131.50 is where I'd be looking. So I'd give this. Now it may do no volume tomorrow and flip around, and if so, yeah, then it comes down, does the retest, regenerates. But if it does get underneath it, and it may, especially if it spikes down on not much volume into this bar and then tries to flip around, that would be actually the ideal buy. So that's Boeing. Looks, you know, it's just coming back. It's okay. Also, good point for IYR. Let's look at IYR. This is the real estate sector. This had been a nice spike ETF on the way up. All right, so this had already done a retest regen on the breakout, so that really isn't an effect. It's really the lows. So you're coming back. You know, this got a little bit more volume than you'd like to see. It's coming back into this bar. What do we got? 16 there. We're doing 10 on the way back, so that's not too bad. Let's see what the weekly looks like. So in the weekly, you still could come back and do a retest regen off the weekly. That's down at 69.33, and that would be a buy on the first trip back. 69.33. That gets you back into these bars. So, yeah, I think you'll get a little bounce tomorrow. I just don't know how far it's going to go. I'd still probably be a little patient here on this one. It's a toss-up. I mean, more than likely it's going to bounce. I just don't know how far it's going to go because you've got this big bar up here now that's anchored resistance. And so I just don't see a trade in it. The real trade is to come back in on that weekly, do the retest regen on the weekly, right, and then buy that. Because this sector's been very strong. It may not get down that far, but I would give it a little bit more time, see how it plays around with this bar on the bounce. And I suspect it's going to try to bounce tomorrow. Next one, PX. Let's look at PX right quick. So PX is Praxair. This is, I believe, if I remember right, this is an aerospace company. Let me pull it up and look at it right quick. No, it's chemicals. This is chemical, basic materials. Okay, so Praxair. You see the weekly on this. What are you trying to do with this thing? Are you trying to go intermediate term, or you're usually doing intermediate term, aren't you? This is Federico. Well, I think what you have here is a range trade, and I think it's going to continue. So this looks to me like just a big range trade here, right? It tests the tops, falls down, right? Tests the bottom, comes back up, tests the tops. I wouldn't be surprised to see it come all the way back and test the bottoms. So it just looks like a range trade. I don't know that I'd probably do anything with it. The only way I'd do something with it is let it break out. And unless it, let me see, that's on the weekly. So let me pop back to the daily real quick. If it broke out on the daily, yeah, I just don't see it. Matter of fact, it's kind of disappointing that that high was 134.01. Yeah, so you broke two swing point highs, and what do I always tell you about that? It should carry 2 to 3 bars, right? Should carry 2 to 3 bars. Well, it didn't. Came right back. And what did it do? It did a retest regen immediately. So far it's held. But that's not the kind of strength you'd like to see off a break of 2 swing point highs. So from that perspective, you know, I would just be patient with this one. I don't see a trade on it yet. Gdxj, we talked about the gold stocks last night, and I just touched on them as I came into the show at the beginning. Here's the Gdxj. Yeah, this thing's had a nice push. So from 32 to 36, I mean 37 almost, yeah, it's 37 and a half. So you've picked up, that's about $5 on 32, right? That's a pretty good move. That's 15% or so. So volume's decent, but you get a lot of short covering in these, so I don't think I'd get too excited about it yet. But yeah, it's a nice move. It's a nice move higher, and it's going to trade. It's going to try to trade over these. Let me see what these tops are: 37.48, 37.51. Yeah, tomorrow will be the, tomorrow will be the bring home the bacon or don't, right? I'm trying to get over those 2 swing point highs. So even if it does, this is the sort of thing when you get this, you're doing a bottom fish to start with if you were already in this, right? This move. Now for this to just, continue on up, yeah, it's possible because gold can do that, but I think you have a much better chance to see this thing come back down and test back into some of these highs here. So I would catch the retrace. Excuse me. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Pretty much all my time as well. Let's quickly just review where we're at. We come in, we do some testing today, especially on the S&P 500. The story there wants to go higher. You got some fade-ins elsewhere. Those fade-ins really didn't have much volume. They also suggest the same. Bonds can't quite tell, don't know what they're going to do. Foreign markets or overseas markets, most of them still hanging at the highs. The only ones that came back with Europe. By the time we open in the morning, Europe will have been trading. That will probably be the first place you want to look when you crawl out of bed. Have a good night, folks. Thanks for joining me. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I'm LA. This is and was your daily TA wrap. Have yourself a great night. Come back to see me tomorrow. Until next then, take care.